So today is September 28th, and this is Debby Beece at the Hastings-on-Hudson Historical Society with Robert Bliss. And let's see, why don't you introduce yourself? Just say your name.
Pete Yarek. I'm here also as an observer and consultant, and I'm welcoming our honored guest, Bob Bachelor Bliss, who I knew from school back in the 60s.
And say your rank.
I also was a Viet Nam vet, serving in 67, 68 with the 18th MP Brigade, and was fortunate to come home.
And Muriel? Say your name and title.
I'm Muriel Olson. I'm the archivist for the Hastings Historical Society, here just to be a listener.
Well, I thought today we're going to hear from Bob, and Bob is writing a book. So we are...
Nobody else can do it, so I guess I have to do it.
Well, I think that's awesome. So
I got a lot of it
rather
done.
than focus on, since you're writing your memoir,
Yes.
possibly a good way to do a little bit of an oral history is to not duplicate your book, but to maybe talk about the pictures and the captions.
Okay, sure,
and
whatever you feel is right.
I think that might be a good idea. I'm open to other ideas, but rather than duplicate what people can purchase and buy,
Yes.
let's talk
Absolutely.
about something more personal. So we have this book, and this book will jog memories, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
And then this oral history could also be listened to as people look at this. This is what you're going to be leaving, you think?
Yes.
So people could listen to a bit of this oral history as
Sure.
they look at the book. Does that seem like a nice idea?
Wonderful.
Well, I guess we could start with this large 8 by 10 here. This was a photo of Golf Company 2-4, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. We were on patrol. Somebody took this photograph, and I enlarged it later on, years later. Viet Nam, 1967. You can notice the airstrike on the hill in the distance. You can see that here. And we were paused. For a break. One of these guys could be me, I'm not sure. But if you look, you'll see people, how well they blend in. There's a guy, you wouldn't even notice, a guy up here. And so we were on patrol.
And now who took this picture, did you say?
I don't know. One of the guys in the platoon took it. All the photos I have here, for the most part, except for a few, were taken by a friend in our squad. He had a camera, and he took most of the photographs. And he took most of them of my friend Gene Smitty Smith. And you'll see him in lots of photographs. Gene just loved to have his photo taken. The next photograph here is another 8 by 10. I blew up. And this is 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines on patrol, 1967, Vietnam. The helicopter is providing air cover and support for us. There's a bunch of Marines out here. I was here at the same time. We all looked alike, so I can't tell. And it's very close to the ground, so that was pretty
And what is
pretty cool.
this boat?
Okay, this
It's
is
a hospital ship?
You ever go on the Sanctuary?
I've heard
That's
of it.
the sanctuary.
This is the USS Sanctuary, a hospital ship that was on station in Vietnam. If it wasn't on station, then the Repose was on station. That was another hospital ship. They used to take turns going. They'd go back to Singapore, let the sailors scream and shout out there and have some fun. Then they get back on. So I was on here twice. At first I had malaria, and they sent me out to this ship, and I was there for 30 days. And then, of course, when I was wounded.
Was that the only way you could receive medical help?
Oh, no, there were plenty of places. In fact, when I got malaria, I went down to Da Nang Med. What do they call it? First Med or something? I forget.
Like a field hospital.
Yeah, well, it was the big one for the Marines down in Da Nang. And from there, they said, a nurse said to me, how would you like to go out to the hospital ship? And I said, great. I mean, I love the hospital. I love
chow. Yeah.
Navy chow. After eating sea rations for 7 months? Yeah, I was down on that one. So I said, great. So on the hospital ship with malaria, I didn't have any duties. In fact, when we go down below for chow for the patients, these great Navy guys were throwing steaks at us left and right, which is something,
Cooked or raw?
Oh, well, we would have eaten them raw, but they were cooked. And then they also had a Carvel stand down below deck, soft ice cream, and that was great. Not to mention using real toilets and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's a
Touch of home.
Yes, indeed, exactly.
Quite a
So
treat.
when you were out patrolling, you had no access to toilets, so how long was an average patrol?
That would vary. Sometimes we were out there for just a few hours. Sometimes we'd go for a day, several days, depending on where you go. And then the big marine operations, would take you. Sometimes you were out there for a good couple of weeks, especially if you got up into the canopy, up in the triple canopy in the jungles. You had to walk out and walk back for the most part. So that's why it took a long time too. These are early pictures here from the first page of me getting out of graduating from Parris Island boot camp, and I've got my PFC stripe on here because I had actually made PFC out of boot camp. There was only 10% of the guys out of about 120 guys that made. So it was like, well, weren't that many.
Bob had to be an honor graduate of
Yeah, that's what it was, an honor
And that
graduate.
means private first class
Yeah, you got promoted right out of boot camp in 8 weeks. That was an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, it was 8 weeks. During World War II in Korea, it was 12 weeks down in Parris Island. I don't know why 8 weeks, but I think they needed bodies over in Viet Nam right away, so they reduced the training schedule to 8. So I'm graduating here, and this is. I'm sorry. Just quickly. Hello, Jeff? These? I don't know. Anyway, so.
Bob Bliss conversation continues.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
this
no
was
problem.
this is Beth Quanger. They lived in Hastings for many years.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this is her mother. I think everybody called her Honey.
She died just within the past year.
Just recently,
the mother.
about 100 and something years old.
Yeah,
she was married to Fred. Yeah, and they were great people living up there on the Lard, I think. And just here you can see Mrs. Murdy Hall.
Yeah.
And Larry Hall, and I was more or less living with them on and off in high school, and a great family. And in fact, Steve and I went into the Marines together on the so-called buddy plan. Well, the buddy plan didn't work out as it was supposed to be. I remember I mentioned this to you.
Yeah.
Because I got into a haircut line, and they grabbed Steve and said, "You get over there." And when the DIs are screaming and yelling at you, and you are just out of your mind with all this action going on, these people yelling at you, we just simply didn't say a word. I didn't see Steve again until halfway through the training. He came marching along the street this way, and we were marching up that way. We didn't wave or anything. We just sort of looked at each other.
Yeah.
Wow! Do you believe this? Then I saw him up at the firing range, and we said just that. Do you believe what we got ourselves into this time? So, the
Your
second
buddy
picture.
contract was null and void, like the first day.
Yeah.
Instead of sticking together, they separated.
Yeah, it was, what was the, and you weren't about to say, hey, excuse me, DI.
Yeah,
In those days, they would put you up against the wall and later on in boot camp.
Where's my buddy? Boo-hoo, right?
Yeah, the next picture is me and Steve Hall at their house. I should just turn this around so you guys can see it because I know it better. This is the Hall's house up on Lafergie Road or Drive. They were right near the aqueduct. And Steve and I were back from boot camp leave, and we came, and a couple of girls that came out from high school, from Hastings, and we were dating them at the time, and it was nice to be home for 30 days leave prior to going back to wherever we were going. Most of the guys in my platoon that graduated went right to Westpac, and that meant you were going to Vietnam, and they would tell you, Westpac. Everybody was going to Westpac. And they got to me, and they sent me out to California for duty station with the 27th Marines. I don't know why. Maybe my drill instructors thought, well, let's not send this guy over there for cannon fodder right away. because they made me a PFC out of boot camp and everything, I guess they thought that maybe
You had potential.
I had potential in the Marines, so which was great. Maybe I should have paid heed instead of volunteering to go to Viet Nam. And then now these continuing.
And then how long was it before you volunteered?
Well, I volunteered going to the Marines with Steve.
No, how long after you were a private first class?
Well, we had 30 days leave, which we spent in Hastings, and then we got.
And when you were in Hastings, how were you treated? Did anyone acknowledge your?
Out of boot camp?
Yeah. Did anyone
No.
say congratulations, good luck out there?
Not really.
No. But people knew you were.
Our friends did, our friends did, and people from high school. And, we went back to the high school in uniform. We went to see Coach Bob, and it was interesting seeing a lot of old friends there.
Did you visit the Cup and Saucer? Was that a good hangout for the kids back in
we
our
did,
day?
sure. Yeah, we were always hanging out there in high school. Yeah, it was great.
So then you were out in California. You were working for a general.
Right, I went to the 27th Marines for duty. And while I was there, they were looking for someone to do clerk duties for Captain Conger, who was our company captain, Lima Company, 27th Marines. And a very nice man. But I got tired of doing that.
The office work.
Yeah.
And so how long were you doing the office work?
I think I did it for about 6 months.
That's not very long.
No. But, it was my father and our family, the Blisses go back to this country, coming to this country in 1638. Blisses always gone off to fight for the country, even the French and Indian War. And that's why I'm a member of the Sons of the American Revolution, because I have two great that were with the 1st New Hampshire Regiment.
Oh,
anyway,
that's incredible.
So our fathers had gone to war. We felt it was our time, so we went too. That's as simple as it was.
So it wasn't a hard decision for you.
No, it was just very. Plus, I knew it was my time. I felt I had to be a part of that over there. It was. An easy thing to do. Of course, I didn't know what to expect, and of course, when we got there, it was a ballgame.
Right, but you didn't hear horror stories. You didn't know how.
Well, we knew some of the things were going on.
How awful it was going to be, or
we knew things. In fact, there were guys in the unit there, the 27th Marines, who had just come back from Vietnam and had been moved into these various. Regiments and what have you, and they told us some stories, but. When you're 20 years old, I was 19 at the time, you're not thinking about that. And you don't think, and that's how it's been down through the ages. Young men go off to war, nowadays women as well. They don't think anything, it's not going to be me.
Right.
The other guy's going to get it, right? So I'm sure it was the same thing in World War II.
And you felt compelled to serve, so
I did.
So you went.
I went. I volunteered, and
what are these? So now this is you in the water?
no, this is my friend. We'll see a lot of him. This is Gene Smith. I have to tell you something about Gene. He was a character. He was a really nice guy. We were all basically teenagers, but he was a good guy. I got to know him in our squad, and. But one thing about Gene is he loved the camera. He just loved being photographed. He was always posing, holding grenades, a couple of cigarettes in his mouth. I mean, Okay, so that was Gene. So this is in a river here, and the guys are stopped to either, they take a quick wash, fill their canteens. Somebody's actually washing.
Now, you didn't actually drink this water. You drank the water in the river. Mm-hmm. No worry about parasites, Giardia.
We had a thing called halazone tablets.
You put that in.
Iodine.
Okay.
You drop a couple in.
But you still got malaria.
Still got malaria. I didn't try to get it. The guys, they used to give us a weekly malaria pill, a quinine or something, I guess, right? Mm. But I took that religiously, but other guys would not take it because they were trying to get malaria. they wanted to get out of the field.
Get out of there.
And then this is taking a break in the bush.
Yeah, this is, let's see here, what does it say? They're taking a break from the heat in the bush, and, it was so hot out there that you'd have to take breaks every so often. So, that was a break, 5 minutes, and then the word would come down the line, saddle up. That's just an old, back to the day when they had horses.
And that meant move out?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd get all settled again. Now, these are just pictures of Chinook helicopters bringing us into a landing zone for some sort of, an operation or patrol of some kind or another. Usually when they brought us out this big, we were going on some operation. And in the jungle, or wherever, the guys still found time to play cards.
What card games did you play?
500, rummy, or there was some poker played too, I suppose, too. Here they're playing rummy, you can see all the cards in his hand. So,
and now what's this? This is a hole in a guy's leg?
No, he's got a leech.
Oh,
somebody took a picture. Hey, I've got a leech. Probably Smitty, if I know Smitty. I got a leech here. Take a picture of it.
When you had a leech, what did you do with it?
Well, let's see. I used to, if I caught them early enough when they were still stretchy, I'd tie them in a knot and toss them so the next guy wouldn't get it. Or we used to put insect repellent on them and they'd fall off. You wouldn't really. I hope there's nothing wrong with my dog. Excuse me.
Sure. I'll just turn off the machine.
Oh no. Of 67, yeah. And then I got wounded the 21st of September, 67.
Tell us about this picture.
Is this on again?
Yes, this should be recording on. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent
Tell
my
us
last
about
week
this-
filling all these in. I never did have the captions.
This picture.
Okay, this is the Vietnamese kids. This is Camp Evans, where we were at Camp Evans for my whole tour until we were needed up north, and they sent us up the north. But Camp Evans was sized for a battalion, and that's where we were, and that was our base. And we used to run all the patrols out of there. It was out on the flatlands. These kids were constantly coming up. They begged for food. The women would try to sell sodas, bananas, things like that, which is it humid or is
Now
it free? I'm just putting my butt on
these
it.
are South. Do you want some water?
It's a little
Do
more.
you have any water?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
These are South Vietnamese.
Yeah, these are South Vietnamese, mostly kids. The kids are great. They love the Marines loved them. We were constantly giving them sea rations, candy, gum, stuff like that.
Okay.
So they always chase us around. There's other pictures where their kids are wearing Marine Corps covers too, our hats.
Handouts that you gave them.
Yeah.
Where was Camp Evans located? Near what village or city?
Camp Evans was just about, let's see, I'd say about 10 miles southeast of Phu and Highway 1. Which Phu Bai sat on Highway 1, and that was the 3rd Marine Division headquarters.
Was Phu Bai north or south of Da Nang?
North.
Okay.
Right. It was in Quang Tri Province. Or was it Tao 10? I forget. Anyway, it was on Highway 1. That was the big. We were there a few times going on big major operations, and occasionally we went in there to refit, get some nice new clothes, and take a shower. I think I had 2 showers in Vietnam. That was it. We were always in the field. The Marines were where I was, up in I Corps. Now, I Corps is the northernmost tactical zone for the military at the time. There was I Corps, 2 Corps, 3 Corps. I think there was a 4 Corps.
Yeah, that was
down in
the
Mekong.
Delta, Mekong,
Right.
Delta area, of course.
Yeah.
Were you planning, or had they offered you R&R, before?
Oh, yeah.
You were wounded?
Yeah.
Were you planning to go somewhere?
Yeah, I was going to go to Taipei. I had R&R was offered to me after 6 months, and so I was going to go to Taipei. We had just moved up north, and we were being shelled up there, and it was dangerous. Up on the DMZ, it's dangerous. So when we were sent up there to act as a roving battalion around Contian, thank you so much.
This is iced tea.
Yeah.
Oh, who wants the iced tea? I'll just drink the water.
What?
You don't want the iced tea?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, what was I saying? I don't know.
About the R&R.
Oh yeah. So a guy came up to me as we had just got up to the DMZ, and he said, Bliss, I'd really like to meet my wife in Hawaii with my family. He said, do you think you could give me your R&R?
Oh.
So I said, yeah. Go ahead. Well, he made it home intact, shall we say? I didn't. If I'd gone on the 5-day R&R, when you get back, you would have spent several days in Da Nang, where you get the paperwork done for your orders to go back to your unit or wherever they were going to send you. So I don't know. I just gave him the R&R and said, why not? I didn't really, I don't know. I didn't think of it much. I was going to help him. He was a radio man, so was I. So we were fellow radio men, so I figured, I could do this for him.
Yeah. And when you were, tell us what being a radio man meant. You went out on patrols, you carried the radio, and then what?
Well, I carried the radio for the whole time that I was there. I carried a platoon radio and a squad radio, and wherever they needed me. Radios could be difficult because the enemy was always looking for radio operators. They wanted to knock them out as soon as possible so that they could disrupt your communication, line of communication. So, but it had its benefits.
You had mentioned that they always knew where you were, where the platoon was, but you never knew where they were.
On any given day in Vietnam, be it the Viet Cong, but more so the North Vietnamese regulars, they would be, of course, up north mostly, unless you had the opportunity to get into the A Shau Valley. I wouldn't recommend it. So we were in their backyard, so they knew where we were all the time. They just did.
It's their turf.
Yeah, and they would not stand and fight unless they had the advantage. We came up on a bunker system one time in the jungles, and we this is something I'm doing some more writing about as we speak. And we found this huge bunker complex up in the jungle, and
when you say
they left.
When you say bunker complex, just describe it that.
Well, these were big bunkers that the North Vietnamese regulars were using in the jungle. For protection, they could live in these things. So what they did, our bunkers were sandbags for the most part. Oh, jeez.
Well,
theirs were made out of trees and dirt.
oh yeah.
Yeah, Jeff.
Put together.
Okay, we're talking about bunkers.
Right. So the bunkers they made were these huge trees and mud and what have you, and they would would take a direct hit to knock one out, and they'd spread them out in a jungle in a perimeter type pattern. Then they'd have their cooking stoves in the middle and their little hammocks. These people were pros at living off the land. And they would hear us coming, and unless they thought that they wanted to fight on their turf, on their terms, they would attack you. But this particular time, they were gone. One guy was straggling behind somebody up front, shot him, and that was the end of him. But we were ordered to go through the bunkers, and we went through the bunkers, at least the one I went through. There were bags of rice and cans of cooking oil, and they all said a gift from the United States.
Oh, bloody hell.
Well, that sure freaked us out, being Marines. We're fighting these guys. I said, wait, are we feeding these guys or fighting them?
And the stolen goods, or
Black markets, stolen, whatever. They had such a network between the Viet Cong.
Probably got foreign aid from years before, and they got through contraband through another country or something like
Possibly.
that.
But this stuff, I think, was in country, and it was not, it had been relatively new. They looked new, all this stuff. And so, it just surprised us, to find all these goods there that had come from the United States. So it was really strange.
yeah. And now, when you find a bunker like that, do you destroy it?
Oh yeah, then we would, after we got everything out of it, if we could find intelligence, that of course would be the main thing, find literature, radios, things like that. And then we'd pack them with C4, which was an explosive, put a blasting cap in and run the cables out, and boom, which you could hear from everyone. Then the monkeys would all start screaming, "Why are you doing that?" They didn't like it.
You think a lot of these fortifications were there from the French Indochina War days?
No, these were pretty new, I think. These were relatively new, and I don't know,
You know, it was all part of their network on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. That's what it was. Because as I recall now, we were up in that area on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So,
Tell us about this picture.
okay, that's Camp Evans again. These are more. You can see the wire there. We had wire strung around the perimeter to keep them out. But you can see there's two boys there. They're wearing Marine Corps caps. They just love the Marines. They're kids. Kids. One thing I found about Vietnam. The kids reminded me of kids at home. Kids are kids everywhere, no matter where. Sure. And you find that today in the wars that are going on now. Yeah. And it's unfortunate to have all these children in harm's way. It truly is. Because so many of these kids over there today are being killed. But the same thing happened in Vietnam. It's, I guess it's part of war, but it's horrible.
And what kind of relationship did you have with the South Vietnamese soldiers that you were fighting with?
You're asking some really tough questions here. We didn't deal with them. We did if we were ordered to in the way of maneuvers or patrols, or sometimes they were a blocking force or what have you. But we didn't really get along with them. We didn't trust them
because
they'd run. If you got into with things heavy, they would melt away and leave us there
and leave you.
Mm-hmm. In fact, there were times that we had been ordered to various places to go in and bail them out because they had gotten into some trouble, and they were calling for the Marines to come up and help them out. We did that up at Quang Tri at an Air Force base up there one time. They got in some trouble with NVA forces, and they called us in, and we went out and got into a big firefight, and we lost a couple of guys, but it took care of that. It took care of their problem was concerned, and then we went back to Camp Evans again, So we were only up there for about 5 days. But that was the time where I got malaria, and I was walking up the Street Without Joy, was the name of the street, dubbed by the French. Street Without Joy. Who gave that name? I think it was a French lady, the one that was killed over there. Highly respected by the Marines. She was a writer in France for some journal.
Was she an American reporter?
She was French.
I can't think of who that would be.
I was walking out on the Street Without Joy, and I was hallucinating from the malaria, from the high temperature.
Oh.
And that night we got into a firefight. Whoops! Another one. Do you know how to catch up with it?
Yes.
I've got one of these, but I don't know how to work it.
It starts automatically to the next file.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I don't know anything about these things.
I had to have my daughter show me about 20 times.
I need more than that.
So eventually you worked your way up to, I'm trying to remember the name of the area where you were on a march, ultimately working up to where you got wounded. Tell us about that point, and then eventually that battalion, the last I talked to you was that your whole battalion was overrun in that area. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, we were up. My company, my company, was up on Hill 681, which was 681 meters. We were sent up there to protect the radio relay site. Radio relay site was, the guys that were like the LRPs, Army LRPs, Marine LRPs, long-range patrols would be out there somewhere, maybe Laos or Cambodia, one of the places we weren't supposed to be in, and they would want to get information back to headquarters by the coast, be it Da Nang or wherever. Well, they didn't have that kind of range, so it would be intercepted up on this mountain, and then it would be relayed down. Yeah. So we were doing that for a month. It was beautiful up there too. The weather was cool because you were up in a high temperature, up in a high altitude, and nights actually got cold. And they had to send up blankets to us because of poncho liners because it was so cold. Mm. During the daytime, we were walking around with tops off. In fact, you can see it here. Mm-hmm. And these are all up on the mountain.
And what was the name of this mountain?
The 681. And
that's
you can see
how you identified them.
Yeah, just by numbers. Mm-hmm. You can see there's airstrikes going on here. We used to also, up there, we took the initiative to call in artillery missions or airstrikes on suspected North Vietnamese or Viet Cong.
And you're still a radio guy, so you're still the one calling all that in and out?
No, I didn't do that part. What I did up on that was we'd run patrols off the mountain, and I would just take the radio and access regular road, but I'd call in helicopters from Camp Evans when we needed resupply, and everything had to be brought into us: water, ammunition, food, that sort of thing.
But would you have enough men with you to actually fight them?
If we had to, we'd give them a good fight. We were in such a position up there that we were in a pretty good position, because it was topographically, they would pay hell getting close to us, because it was so the mountain up there was so ragged. You know, we'd have the advantage looking down on them, so they wouldn't attempt that unless they had a real major need to do that. And at the time, they didn't, or they would have. If they wanted to bump us off there, they would have.
Very strange way to wage war.
Yeah, it was.
Doesn't that seem...
Yeah, because the enemy was all around you, and you never knew what we are.
I mean, you didn't have any kind of sense of meeting the enemy and taking care of it.
You had no idea.
Yeah.
Unlike Korea, even, and especially World War II, you knew where the lines were.
Right.
In Vietnam, you had no... Gail will vouch for that. You had no idea where he was. You could be,
In addition to
doing your laundry.
not even knowing the landscape.
Right. What do you mean by that?
That you didn't know the territory previously. I mean, it's unknown. And they, of course,
it was their backyard,
lived
sure.
there. Right.
Yep. So that was, and then from there, I'm trying to continue on and keep the train of thought. So from there, we were up there for a month. And then they sent us, that's when they decided that our battalion was going to go north to Cantian. Cantian was under siege through the late summer and early fall of 1967, and as such, they needed Marines up there to protect our fire bases and protect the avenues of approach, where if the North Vietnamese decided they were going to come across the DMZ and attack in force. So we put up a series of fire bases and the McNamara line, which was supposedly a barrier to keep them out, with listening devices and booby traps, etc. Excuse me. And so what had happened is that a sister battalion, 326, had been mortared in place and badly mauled, and they had to be pulled out of the field. So they sent us up to take their place. So we'd been down south all this time, kicking booby traps around and stepping in the occasional punji pit and the occasional snipers with the Viet Cong. But, when you went out, we called them Charlie, the VC. But when we went north, there was a proper name, and that was Mr. Charles.
Oh, that is meaning it was so much more aggressive and worse.
More respect to that group. They were tenacious.
Yeah.
The most incredible fighters, and yet they were also very brutal. I don't want to get into that.
How were they incredible?
They were willing to take losses. Mm-hmm. That was the main thing.
Yeah, life is
very disciplined.
Life is cheap.
And a lot of them were on drugs. We knew we'd find opium on them and things sometimes. So, but they were dedicated to the cause. They've been fighting how many hundreds of years? The Japanese, they just went on and on.
The French.
The French, especially the 50s, yeah.
Thanks for bringing up that point about they were drugged a lot, because that was our experience in the Central Highlands. Mm-hmm. Some prisoners we took, they were out of it, you can tell. They were. It wasn't shell shock. They were just the after effects of drugs, whatever they were taking. They were high. Yeah. And put it in the vernacular. Yeah. Very high.
And a lot of times they would do this. They'd give it to their troops just to make them more aggressive. I don't know. I smoked pot over there, and a lot of us did. Yeah, we thought we were going to die, so...
Now, when you say they were willing to...
It was mellow, not aggressive. Anyway, I'm sorry.
When you say they were willing to make sacrifices, they were willing to sacrifice soldiers, how did that manifest itself? How did you see that?
Well, it's part of their history. They were willing to take huge losses to kick the Americans out. Mm-hmm. Ho Chi Minh knew, General Giap knew that if they stayed long enough, the Americans would go home. If they stayed long enough, the Japanese would go home. So, or the French, and especially the French, yeah. But so they just were of that mindset. The Oriental mindset is different from. It really is, without sounding racist or something. They just were willing to die for the cause.
I think that's,
and millions did.
Yeah.
The losses they took under the B-52 bombings alone, my God. But at any rate...
Now, B-50, now was that napalm? No.
No, B-52s are the big 500 and 1,000-pound bombs, or 250s that they drop. They called it Arclight, was the designated term. And they'd go out, 3 or 4 of these things at high altitude, and the poor soldier on the ground would never even hear it coming. And, sitting by a little campfire one moment, and gone the next.
So I guess we'll continue with, you were talking about I keep interrupting.
Oh, that's all right, because I'm running off on tangents.
Well, no, we keep throwing different questions at you, which is what we're supposed to do. But so anyway, keep talking about what happened in Cantien.
Okay, so when we got up there, we went through Way, which, by the way, I'm writing about too, which was such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city. These lovely French Vietnamese girls walking up and down the boulevard with these, I think they call them Daido, the outfits.
Ao Dais, I think they were called.
What was it?
Ao Dais.
Ao Gai, right.
Ao Dais.
All white. And
long dress.
Long white, right, and slut aside with pants. And these girls, these French Vietnamese, beautiful. You could tell because they were also very tall, unlike the average Vietnamese woman. So we went through there, and it was in Way where they were the mama sons, the older women were trying to sell us marijuana, and a lot of guys were eager to buy it. And we were in these big 6x trucks, right, on our way up, the whole battalion. And some of the guys were eager to do it because they knew we were going into a bad area, and they thought, "What the hell? I don't." And of course, we weren't allowed to do this. No. And if you got caught, you were in big trouble. But it got.
If you got caught, what happened? When you were?
Depend on your commanding officer. Sometimes it'd be a reprimand. Sometimes they do worse, maybe loss of rank or something. At any rate, we got up to a place called Cam Lo, which was another fortified Marine fire base up on the DMZ, and yet we went further north to another fire base called C2. It was just C2, and it was just full of bunkers and artillery pieces, and it was right on the DMZ. And as we got off the trucks, all of a sudden in the distance, I remember hearing boom, 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 boom. Oh, that's strange. And then somebody off up this little hill there, who was actually living there, yelled, "Incoming!" When they yelled incoming, you have to find a hole very fast. Well, we went running off. We didn't know where we were or what was going on. All of a sudden, we started tumbling into this trench that was about 8 or 9 feet deep. Guys laying on top of each other. Loveless landed on top of me, my good friend Loveless. And like school kids, we were all laughing about it afterwards because, ha ha ha, look at that. The artillery was just a quick barrage of about 7 or 8 rounds. Actually wounded our battalion commander, Colonel Hammond, and but it was minor. But anyway, so that was it was like a welcome sign from the North Vietnamese. They were saying, "Welcome to the DMZ," I guess, So from there, that night we spent the night below ground in one of these big bunkers that were all huge hand-hewn beams, and no, they weren't hand-hewn, they were just large beams and sandbags. And down there at night, they even had electricity running through it, and it was comfortable. They had cots and everything. Next morning, we moved out of there online. As we were moving along, to our destination, the other Marines who had been really badly mauled prior were moving out of the field, going the opposite direction to get trucks to go to I think they eventually went to Okinawa to refit. That's how badly they were torn up there. And I remember hearing the guys saying, "You guys, wait till you see what you're in for." Or, you don't want to hear that. But that's what they were, some of them were doing that, and, it made it a little more frightening. So what it was from there, we made our way up to Cantien, and we acted as the roving battalion, meaning that we were trying to keep the North Vietnamese off of Cantien, which is a vital fire base.
And this was this was the relay station?
No, this was up on the DMZ.
Oh, okay.
This is up where you don't want to be because we got shelled every day, whether it was mortars, rockets, or artillery. We got shelled every day. They would wait for you sometimes after you'd fill in your hole in the morning and then shell you so you were above ground and they could catch you. And that's how good they were in their own backyard. They knew where you were, and we didn't know where they were.
And what did you make of all that? What
It was very, very. Let's see. Let me channel Nathan Lane. It was very disconcerting. Oh, it was. He did that in that movie at Cosmo Fall. I think it was. It was very funny. I shouldn't be saying that.
That's all right. You can say whatever you want.
I'm sorry.
So you're going out on.
How did we feel about it? It was pretty frightening. We knew we were going into some big trouble, and we knew we were going to eventually run into some enemy forces. And so every night we did the best to keep our heads below ground. It was raining a lot. We were getting soaking wet. It was miserable. And then we made our way up to. One morning we got up and it was actually sunny out, and they took us out and said, okay, the weather was good, so they wanted us to go out and look for Mr. Charles again, and we found him. We walked right into him. Echo Company first, must have been a couple hundred yards to our left, and I just heard this fire start, and it got louder and louder and louder, and so we knew something was happening, and we started to run in that direction, because Marines will do that. They'll run to where they hear the action. Most people would want to run away. No, we run to it. Think about that, because these are our brother Marines, We're very concerned about that. So, but our platoon sergeant, Sergeant Nelson, stopped us. He had just gotten a radio message stating, and I couldn't hear anything on my radio. There was so much noise going on, so much confusion. So I just left it on the receiver there, and he said to us, "Okay, we're gonna turn to the right. We're gonna fix bayonets, and we're gonna move in on line." When they said fix bayonets, we thought, "Oh boy, this is it." And this friend of mine,
and that means more hand to hand.
Oh yeah. So this friend of mine, Robbie Dupree, is next to me on my right, and he starts singing this song. Thank the Lord for the nighttime. I said, "Will you shut up? You know what we're doing?" Well, we started moving up on line all of a sudden, and as the noise was getting even louder to our left, what they wanted us to do was try to flank this enemy force on the right-hand side to see if we could take some of the heat off of Echo and Fox companies. So as we're moving up on line, the bullets start snapping by my head. I just remember like the snap. I thought, oh wow, I wasn't used to that. So I saw the guys up in front that were hitting the dirt. I said, yeah, maybe I better do the same thing. So boom, I'm down on the dirt. And the next thing I know, we're moving forward still, and there's a tall hedgerow in front of us that had to have been 8 feet high. And behind it is where the North Vietnamese, we found out later, was the 90th NVA Regiment, had set up their bunker system, and out of there they ran their own patrols, and what it was supposedly a staging area for the eventual overrunning of Con Tien. Well, we managed to stop that, because they ran into us, we ran into them first. So that battle went on for an entire day. I went through 3 M16s that day, because the M16 was a piece of junk and didn't work at that time. And they had the audacity to put us up into these areas with this enemy with weapons that didn't work. We couldn't extract the casings, the spent shells, you know about that from 67, Pete, right?
The
M16.
The failure of the M16.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was fortunate that with the Army, they still had us issued the M14s, and I was very more fortunate than that I had a selector switch to go on automatic.
Yeah.
So I was familiar with similar to the World War II BAR, Browning automatic fire. I could do automatic.
Yeah.
But in the early years, the M16 did have its drawbacks. Put it lightly.
Right, put it lightly, because a lot of us American soldiers lost their lives. There were battles where later they'd go up and find they're dead, and they had the entrenching tool either in the rifle trying to extract the shell or in the ground next to them. You were firing one at a time, like the pioneer days.
Yeah.
So that was big trouble. But let's see, where were we with this? Oh yeah, well you mentioned the M14. We got the M14 when we first got there, and 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines came over en masse in '65 with the 9th Marines, two of the first regiments, or rather battalions, to come into the country in '65, and that we all had M14s. And when they told us, after I'd been there a month, in April they came into Camp Evans with the M16, handing them all out and said, you guys are going to like this because it's a good jungle weapon, it's short, it's light, stocky, it's a good weapon. Well, we didn't like it right away without even firing it because it looked like a toy. It was all plastic for one thing.
Mattel toy, they had a model of that, I think, back in the 60s.
Why was that? Why was it plastic? Because it made it what?
Lighter weight.
Lighter to carry in the heat?
It's supposed new technology of the age.
Exactly right. It was lighter weight. Made thing. It was a main thing. Okay. But guys started having problems with it right away.
So you knocked out the hedgerow?
No, the hedgerow. Thank you for keeping me on track here, Debbie.
I'm trying.
The hedgerow, a bunch of guys went up, fire team. I noticed while all this fighting was going on, we were firing through the hedgerow. We couldn't do anything. The tanks we had with us would have demolished them, but the tanks started getting hit with rockets and mortars, so they left. They never did that in World War II, I don't think. They stayed and fought. Well, these guys would leave.
But somebody ordered them to leave?
Well, they ordered themselves to leave, I think, But, I saw a fire team run up, and they got blown back. It was booby trapped. So somebody else was trying it a little while later. I said, don't do it. I said, it's booby trapped. We never did get through it, but there were breaks up to the left where there were guys. Some of Gulf Company, I think the 3rd Platoon actually got through and took over some of the fighting halls of the NVA forces, having killed them. But we were taking many casualties. There were guys all over the place. I got on the radio and tried to get them out.
And are you actually seeing the enemy at this point? Or
no, we couldn't see him.
You're shooting.
I couldn't see.
You're shooting blind, and you're being shot
through
blind.
These hedges.
And you're being shot blind.
More or less, except
you think they could see you.
Oh, we knew that they had a guy with a ladder on the other side. He climbed up the ladder and he'd look around. And he'd get back down. He was a forward observer, and he'd say, drop rounds here, drop them over here. Well, they saw my radio, so eventually they hit me with mortars and,
So you had the radio, and you're trying to get...
I was trying to get somebody on the line, but it was so much confusion, screaming and yelling, you couldn't get anybody on the horn there. So I thought, the hell with that, just kept firing. So my rifle would jam, I'd drop it, I'd pick up another one to the left or behind me. Somebody had been wounded and left it. I'd use that for a while. I went through 3 rifles a day. I got wounded, 3 of them. And then I got hit and I didn't need one anymore. But, so it was a joke to have that weapon up there anywhere in combat at that time. The Marines were adamant about it. But you know what the officers told us? Clean your weapons better. Until they finally took a few in to these arms experts, and the guys found out, oh yeah, this is wrong up in the receiver, up in the what was it? I think it was the bolt action that had
Slide
all the
action.
this is getting crazy now. Now it's my wife. Man. Okay, we're here. Yeah, we're in the building. Okay, bye.
Is she able to walk, or does she need...
Nancy had a minor heart attack recently.
Does she need help? I can go pick her up.
She said she's okay. She's
all right?
Yeah,
all right, well, we don't want her to have a heart attack. All right, so okay. So now here we are.
That'll continue right up to the end of the day. We went home all day fighting these guys. And kept taking casualties.
And so, but so you're on the radio, you're trying to get reinforcements in? You're trying
Well,
to
we
get
couldn't
people
get
to...
any reinforcements. Marines were spread pretty thin up there. And
How many Marines were there, do you think, up there?
Oh, well, God, I don't know. There had to be a division up there, I guess.
And that would be how many men?
I don't know what a division is. Put it this way, a battalion, I was with the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, that was about 600 to 800 men,
Yeah.
right?
Division's usually 15 to 20,000.
Something like that.
Yeah. At least I'm going by the Army standards.
That's close.
So there
Some
was-
battalions
there
are
was-
like 5
There
to
were
800.
several hundred men up there, taking fire and firing.
Well,
You would say-
we were up against a reinforced battalion from the 90th Regiment. Now, a regiment is usually 4 battalions or such. So, we're fighting these guys, and we were outmatched as far as strength is concerned. Not to mention they had a much better rifle in the AK-47 than we did. Their forward observers were excellent. Their mortar people were excellent. They could walk mortars like this. Boom, boom,
Very true.
right up a street, and they knew how to use them well.
Explain that. I'm not sure I know what that means. When you say they could walk mortars, what does that mean?
Peter, why don't you explain it?
Well, when you're setting up a mortar barrage, you have the shells to go in, and with your mortar crew, you're supposed to hopefully have someone spotted where the enemy is, and then you shoot the first 3 rounds is towards where you think the enemy is.
They call them spotter rounds, right?
Right, and then it's in increments. I'm not an artillery or mortar man, but they adjust the mortar so it will reach the location where it'll do the most effect.
Okay.
So, and when you say walking, that means it's going in some type of sequence
Yeah.
towards that area. They're very lucky if they hit the
If
enemy
they hit-
location the
yeah,
first
right.
time around.
Right.
But you have to have someone helping you spot, or at least you there can see it.
Adjustments.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is an adjustment type of situation.
So-
that's what it's called.
So that
walking
fight
up.
went on all day, and then what happened?
Well, we were taking so many casualties that Colonel Hammond, for some reason, decided to stay with Hotel 1,000 meters to our rear. He stayed with them. We left all of our gear back with Hotel Company, and we only went out with the three Fox, Echo, and Golf companies. So he should have been commanding from the front. He wasn't. A couple lieutenants called in. We need to drop back and then put ordnance on these people and then go back in on them. He said, no, attack. But we didn't have the means to attack, and we lost so many men that day. So by the end of the day, to make a long story short, well, when I got hit, I got a mortar land here. It hit my sergeant, Roberts, and blew me up in the air, and I came down on my back, and it knocked the wind out of me, and I had the taste of cordite in my mouth. Cordite is a substance that comes after spent rounds are exploded. You just get this taste. I don't know.
The smell, the odor from.
Got it.
I could actually taste it. And I tried to get up, but I felt my femur sticking up here midway into my thigh. So I went, whoa, I laid back down. Sergeant Roberts, who had been hit in the back, said, call him up, tell him we need some help. So I tried to get on the radio, but I just couldn't do it. He said, all right, sit up. So I went, oh, God. And he pulled the radio up and he started making some calls. How he got through and I didn't, I don't know. Because I was the radio operator and he wasn't. But he got some Marines come out and help us out. I remember looking down and I saw my left foot leaning over this way.
Yeah.
I said, that is not good. I knew that was not good. So I couldn't do anything. They took 6 guys to pull me off the line of fire, and they took us. The wounded were all being staged at a dry riverbed that had foliage all around it, so it was out of line of sight from the enemy. Well, anyway, they somehow they figured it out anyway. They started walking rounds up the riverbed. Well, they knew what the area was, so maybe they just figured that's where they'll go. So
they're shooting at the wounded soldiers.
Yeah, they're shooting at the wounded who were very wounded, and they're killing them. And then they finally got us up to Echo Company was ordered to make a makeshift LZ to the rear so that we could get all the dead and wounded out. So choppers were coming in and going out, coming in, going out. One got shot down, but this went on all afternoon. By the time I got up to the staging area, there was Sergeant Nelson was there, a black Marine, highly respected. He went home with 2 silver stars. He won that day for that fight. And I saw him there, and he's leaning against a dead Marines that were stacked like cordwood about 6 feet high.
Oh.
These were all dead Marines, but that's how they had to do it to get them on the choppers, make it easier to get them out. So he said, Bliss, we finally got your ride, you're going home. I said, Sergeant Nelson, God bless you, and good luck, Semper Fi, we shook hands. They got me on the helicopter, and a couple of other guys were there. One of them I knew, and we took off. I was having some problems breathing. I'd lost a lot of blood. So I remember grabbing the pant leg of this crew chief, who was the gunner in the helicopter. These were H-34s, the regular medevacs, smaller helicopter. So I went like this, pointing to my throat, meaning I can't breathe very well. So he got down on his knee to give me a mouth to mouth, and I said, no, I'm not that bad.
It's not that bad, right?
I often think of that. So he looked at me like, what the hell's wrong with it? Anyway, we made it to the USS Sanctuary, this ship, and they got us out. We were lying across the deck up here.
They flew you directly to the ship?
Yeah.
We were laying back. Did you get any aid from Navy corpsmen? Were there any corpsmen?
Oh, sure. The corpsmen were the ones that were patching us all up in the field during this battle.
Did they give you first aid?
I had bandages all the way up and down my leg here. Morphine. Yeah. Somebody gave me their can of peaches, which is unheard of in Vietnam. Peaches were the best because they had fluid in them too, So there were a lot of corpsmen and we lost a lot of corpsmen that day as well.
I can imagine.
We landed on the ship, and a priest came up to me, and he was going to give me last rites, and I yelled at him. I said, Father, I'm not going anywhere. He said, get the hell out of here. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. Oh. And then I blocked out. Funny thing is, years and years later, the helicopter pilot, a Marine captain, I don't remember his name, I've got it at home, but everybody called him Ski. Well, he was the helicopter pilot. He did all this action all day long, back and forth. He'd go down to Da Nang, drop off wounded and dead, pick up water, ammunition, make the trip up to the fighting zone, to the battle site again. He did this all day long. He eventually got that, because of that action, he got what's the highest award for
Navy
pilots?
Cross?
No, it's an Airman's Award.
Distinguished Air Medal.
Flying Cross.
Thank you. Distinguished Flying Cross, that's right.
My husband has it.
Is that right? I didn't know that. What? Talk about that.
He was a bomber pilot in World War II over Germany.
So was my stepdad. Which did he fly, the 29s or
the P-24?
Ah, yes.
The Liberator?
Liberator, yeah. So he got in touch with me somehow. This is when the computers started coming in. And when the computers got in, all the vets started getting together, from all over, not just Vietnam, World War II as well, Korea, you name it. So he said to me, Bob, there's an interesting story about this. He said, I think you should know. I should say that he died about a year later from cancer. But he was a hell of a guy, and he was telling me the whole sequence. He said, when I picked you up, we had little gas for the ride out to the ship. So, no, I'm sorry, let me reback that up. I thought I had enough gas to get us to Dong Ha. Well, Dong Ha was where the medical facilities were, and another Marine Corps base, a little bit to the rear, relatively safe, but not, So he went to land there, but as he looked down, he noticed that the North Vietnamese were shelling the hospital. Talk about bad guys, right? Mm-hmm. You don't do that.
It's pretty bad.
These guys are out of action. Some of them dying. You got to shell them just like they did on the LZ to us. Boy, they pissed us off. Those. Anyway, so he continued to say that. Well, he said we couldn't land here because of all these rounds impacting. He said, so we decided to take a run for the Sanctuary, which was on station, and pilots had already been taken wounded from this fight out there. He said, I knew we were low on gas, and he said it was going to be a miracle if we made it. He said, but I had no other choice. He said, I had to get you there to save your life. He said, we made it, of course, we made it. He said, but we were on fumes. He said, I was sure we were going to go in the water. And I wanted to get as close to the ship as possible. Well, he made it.
How many other wounded were there with you on that?
Mine?
Yeah.
There were two. Just two others. All the rest of it. Why they waited so long to get me out? I don't know. I would have liked to,
Were you in pain?
Yeah, on and off.
You had enough morphine, probably.
Yeah, morphine helped a lot.
You carried that with you? Or someone gave that to you?
They gave me two injections. They're little tabs. They stick them in this right through your clothes and go squeeze it.
Did you carry your own little medical kit?
No. The only thing we ever carried was a bandage. Every Marine had a bandage to the rear on his web belt. And if you were wounded, the person helping you, or the corpsman, the first thing they do is use yours first. So that's what they would do with that, but we didn't have. No, the corpsman carried all the medical kits. And that's why they were highly prized by the North Vietnamese, if they could knock them off. Them and the radio operators. And the officers.
Did you want to ask any questions about any of this?
No,
No, we're going along
Okay,
nicely.
so now these pictures are you're done, right?
Yeah, this is an interesting photograph. This is aboard a medevac transport airplane, and it landed in Hawaii.
Okay, I'm just going to identify what this photograph is. It says Hawaii, aboard medevac aircraft, September 1967, and it's well deep into the album.
I should mention this.
And you look so young.
Yeah, and also
How old are you? You're what?
I was 20 there.
Wow.
I'd also lost about 20 pounds.
Yeah, very thin.
Yep, that was just from being wounded.
But you look good.
You see the Purple Heart I'm wearing? Okay, most guys get their Purple Heart if they're wounded. They get it in country back in Vietnam. Well, somebody. I was on that sanctuary, and they had officers in and out all the time. I don't know why they never gave me my Purple Heart aboard the ship.
How long were you there, Bob?
Where?
On board the ship.
Well, I thought I was on the ship for a month, but according to the back of this photograph, that was September
67, it says here.
Yeah, it was September. Oh, I thought I didn't get out of there till like October, but no, it was only a matter of a week or more.
You were wounded on the 21st of September?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is like September 26th or something. So that really surprised me. I mean, I don't know how. There's something wrong with that. Because I lost my foot first. They amputated the foot, and then they had to work up because gangrene set in. So there were successive surgeries, amputations, ending at the hip. So, anyway, to continue.
Well, that couldn't have all been in 1 week.
That's what I thought. There's something wrong with that. Yeah.
All in 1 week?
Couldn't be.
No.
Couldn't be. So anyway, this corporal comes aboard the aircraft with a camera, and he says, Bliss, he says, General Krulak wants to come aboard and give you your Purple Heart. General Krulak he died recently, in San Diego, about a year ago, I guess. A famous Marine. He had two. Is that Nancy?
Yes.
Yeah.
He had two Navy crosses, only second to the Medal of Honor. He was in World War II. He was in Korea, and in this capacity, he was the commanding general of all Marines in the Pacific. So this was a great. In fact, the corporal said to me, Bliss, he said, "You think you can get out of that bunk?" I said, "I don't know. I've never stood up before." He said, since being wounded, and he said, "Well, I wish you'd try, because this is a great honor with General Krulak coming aboard to it." And I said, "I'll do it." So I got up. I'm standing there holding on that bunk. As you can see, General Krulak comes on like a little grandfather. What a sweet guy. But he was in the Marine Corps, so he went about, "Hey, you look really nice." And none of that. He comes aboard and he says to me, "Bliss, why didn't you get your Purple Heart in Vietnam?" I said, "Sir, I have no idea." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what. None of my Marines are going back to the States without proper awards." So he said, this is on behalf of a grateful nation. He gives me my Purple Heart. We talked a little bit, and he said, "Oh, and when you get back to the States, get a haircut." Aye, sir. So, what a nice man he was. What a nice man. And I had a photograph of him and I together, and it got lost.
Oh.
And I'm so sorry I lost that.
Oh, it's a shame.
Oh, here's a girl I met when I got back. I got back to the Naval Station in Oakland, California, and it was called Oak Knoll Navy Hospital. And there were Quonset huts, and they were spread out in these rolling hills. And it was built about the time of World War II. And the reason they did that is spread them out like that because they were afraid the Japanese might bomb California. Mm-hmm. So they were all Quonset huts.
And how were you treated when you came home?
In Hastings?
Well, you mentioned nobody said welcome home when you came back.
No. Only years later, we Marines started saying to each other, and other vets from Vietnam would say, as Peter just said to me, welcome home. We started welcoming ourselves home.
But was the reception different in Hastings?
No, nobody said anything. It was just like I had just gone away for a weekend.
Really?
There were some people that knew me, and some of those people were businessmen and things, and they were polite and all, but nobody was really interested. And because, for a reason, Vietnam was in 1967, 68 was when I got home, it wasn't going well for the country, and they didn't want anything to do with it. Nan,
You want to come sit down, Nancy? Oh.
she'll be looking around.
There's a kitchen with water and tea and things.
My friends were very interested in what
Did you make of that?
Well, we were friends, and we grew up together.
But what did you make of the fact that no one said welcome home and that you weren't?
At the time, I don't know what I remembered. I don't think I gave it much thought. I may have been somewhat surprised that nobody was interested in the fact. My brother had submitted my high school photograph to the Hastings newspaper. What was that then?
Hastings Press.
Yes, now
Hastings News.
Muriel tried to find the article that we talked
The
about.
Enterprise.
The Enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you find it?
Muriel, we haven't found it.
Not
because
yet.
We have an intern who's going to look.
Okay, because my brother had done put in the caption there, what it was about, and I still have it at home.
You have
Wait a minute, I have it.
Do you have it? Could you fax it, a copy of it? We could show that.
Sure. I gotta dig it out. You know where that would be, Dan?
I'll track it down.
Now, how were your other I want to say
Friends or
colleagues, but they're not
yeah.
colleagues.
No.
How did you keep in touch with your squadron when you came back?
No, just Smitty.
Okay.
Because when I got home, he got in touch with me, and he lived in Whittier, California, and I went out to see my mother, who lived very close to Whittier, and so we got together, and he gave me the negatives to all these photos, most of these photos, and I spent some time with him and his family, and it was great. Unfortunately, I found out I belong to a group called the 2nd Battalion 4th Marines Association. We get together every year to honor our past Marines and corpsmen, and we've been down to various affairs. We've had a huge monolith was put on the grounds of the new Marine Corps Museum. We had an opening unveiling there for that. So we get together. But of course, we didn't get together until the computers came out. And then we started finding everybody. And that's when the association really took off. And I did a lot of work for them, putting the database together a few years ago. And
My cousin can attest because I think she looked up, under your name or association, and your name was associated with that.
oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you a couple questions. Greg has a long list of names of people that he knows from Hastings who served.
I keep calling you Peter.
Please, you know me as Pete. Here it's local.
Yeah,
Greg,
right.
the middle
Okay.
name.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm
Pete will
sorry.
be fine.
And-
You might remember me. My nickname was Moose.
Yes,
back in
no,
football
that's how I
days.
remember,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
The moose is on the loose.
There you go.
Okay.
And they won't, I made maybe half a dozen calls, and absolutely nobody wants to talk about their experience or show an album
Well, back me up here. What are we talking about?
for this exhip.
Whom are we
You mean
speaking of?
specifically for Vietnam?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I've
Oh.
a list
Okay.
of soldiers of various.
Hastings.
Yeah, various. One
That-
was an MP.
that doesn't surprise me.
And but now you're so open and are offering
Well, you know
so
what?
much.
I have
Now,
always been
why do you think
outgoing
that
to a
is?
fault. That's just my personality.
Well, it's,
A lot of
you're
guys.
very lucky.
Well, I don't know. Just
But why do you think that
the other guys
that
would
is?
not.
Yeah.
Some guys just are more private and they don't want to remember or bring it up. I would say probably the majority just don't want to think about Vietnam.
Yeah.
When you think?
They still feel isolated and
Yeah, possibly
just
they resent
don't
the
want to.
fact that they were not well
retell
received
anything.
when they came back.
Sure.
Think about John Zagora.
I mean, that,
No, of course. Yeah, there are guys who are just like that. They don't want to talk about it.
Didn't he serve in the Navy?
Yeah,
Now,
he was on the
did-
Brown River Navy, the boats.
Oh, he was.
Boats.
He
you
was one
had-
of the guys I contacted.
And he didn't want to do anything?
No, by letter and through his sister,
Yeah.
who was married to Freddie Zook.
Yeah, I know her.
Yeah. So Kathy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no replies, and with few exceptions like yourself and a few others who have sent in
Well,
things.
see,
but
I've always been a history person.
Is
a
it
history
something
buff.
also about being a Marine?
No.
it's the individual.
But to me, it's more of a historical
Aren't
thing.
Marines considered the elite of the armed forces?
Well,
We like to think so.
We like to think so.
Their motto is first
I
to
think
fight.
that- I think that answers the
That's the
question.
attitude, right?
The Marines are really all about tradition. They're all tradition.
Right. Yeah.
That's, they use words and phrases and terms today that they were using in the 18th century. We still say "aye, aye, sir," for example.
A lot of core culture, history,
Very much so.
tradition.
right.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should.
Why these guys wouldn't want to? I think it's
Yeah.
just they didn't want to bring it up.
Yeah.
But you see, I love history.
Yeah.
And here we are in Hastings, beautiful Hastings. I grew up here at the Andrews Farm. I think that to be associated with a town for your service is a good thing. Why shouldn't we know our past?
Very
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Now, when
And you folks are doing such a great
now
job.
did
of that.
you what did you think when I guess by '67 the anti-war movement was starting to get underway, peace signs, and what did you feel and think about that?
Well, we resented it at the time. You mean being overseas and seeing these things come out, like in Stars and
Jane
Stripes? and all
Fonda
that.
going to
Well, we love her. We have nothing good to say about Jane.
still.
Excuse me?
Still?
That's right. If I had been in, she did a movie recently, and she was up in Woodstock, and it was one of these post-hippie Jane Fonda movies, and I have nothing against the woman. I loved her father,
Yes.
and you can imagine how he felt. A former Navy gentleman, officer at that, having his daughter go off to North Vietnam.
So on some level, you knew the things were so difficult where you were in Con Thien, and that this battle was so enormous, and you came home. But on some level, it was still, you resented the anti-war movement. What was that like? I mean, it must have been a little hard on some level.
Well, here we are fighting for our lives in Vietnam, fighting for our country. If you want to go that far, and you got your peers back in the States burning flags and doing all of that. It was difficult to take. It was difficult. It was hard.
Yes, and then
Especially
you
for the
come
guys
home
going
and
in later on when they knew
nobody's.
that the war was unwinnable, and they still had to be there.
still-
That's when the drugs just became prevalent.
Yeah.
Don't you think? It was later.
Yes.
Really took off because these guys said, "What the hell am I going? I don't want to be the last one to die in this blankety blank war.
Right.
Can't blame him, I guess.
Right, maybe.
I don't know if I'd be shooting
And sort of like
heroin,
today
but-
too, right? Because we have
Yeah.
these guys
I
in
know.
Afghanistan, but yet there's this time that they're going to come out. So
Yeah, we just
It's
hope
all
they come home
strange.
soon, and apparently they've done what the Russians can't do, and that's give these people a chance at democracy. The same thing with Iraq, but it's a long, long road to that.
It is,
Seems like
yes,
it's
it
going to
is.
take forever.
Ever, yeah.
yeah.
But I was proud to have served, even today. I started college over at Westchester Community College, but the prosthesis I was wearing was digging into my side here. I had a bucket I sat in, and this thing was so crudely made by the Navy at the time anyway that I had to go to the VA to get a better one, and they made much better models. But still, I had to drop out of school, and I spent a year in the Bronx VA hospital having surgeries and a flap graft moved up on my hip to give me the support I would have needed to wear a continued prosthesis. Mm-hmm. I wore those things for 15 years. I called them, what was the name, Nan? Oh, she's wondering.
Yeah.
I didn't, Irving.
Really.
So I had Irving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had about 10 Irvings, I think. And when I decided to get rid of wearing a prosthesis when I met Nancy and we were going to get married, and I realized at the point I was using this thing basically as cosmetically, so I could blend in with everybody else. And that's why when I went off to college and tried to get around with this prosthesis and was having so bad a time at it, I got to a class and I was 10 minutes late, and this professor said, Bliss, if you show up at this class late again, he says, I'm going to flunk you out of this course. He never asked me why I was using a cane, to get around it. Well, at that point, I said, to hell with this. I left.
Shame on him.
I just dropped out of it.
Yeah.
I did go back to school later, but unfortunately, I only finished about 2 years of college. I never did finish.
Should we, I guess it's getting late and Nancy's here, should we wrap this up, or is there more
If you'd like.
would you like to cover?
So, up to you. We can stay a little while longer if you'd like. We can always come back on Sunday if you want.
You would like to say.
Well, I'd just like to say that I'm proud to have served my country, and I'm glad to be a part of this, what I consider an important project that you folks are putting on. If I had to do it again, I don't think I'd go to Vietnam, but of course that's 2020. American guys go off, guys now girls go off to war, and that's something that Americans have always done. And now I'm one of
a
them.
grandson in South Korea, but he's coming home. He's coming home, then he will be reassigned to Maryland.
Oh, good. He's in the Army?
Yeah, it's some sort of chemical stuff that he is learning. He's getting more training.
Some of the guys that survived that battle.
Some of the guys that survived that battle had a very hard time getting back to life back in the States. My good friend Mike Lovelace, who now is up in Northern California, and I still haven't seen him after Nam. He had malaria. In fact, I got him out of the field. As we were going up to the DMZ, in fact, we were already up there, and I saw him sitting by the side of the road one night near this church. It was dark and depressing, and we were scared out of our minds. And he's sitting there by the road, and I went up to him and I said, Bob, what's the matter? I don't know, I just feel really sick. And I looked at him over and I said, my God, he's got malaria. I knew about that. So I got
Because you'd already had it, right?
Yeah, so I got a corpsman over, said, yeah, looks like malaria. So he got a medevac out that evening. And that's the last time I saw Mike. He said when he got back to, where were they, Dong Ha. This is after success of several battles later that they get back to Dong Ha. Something like 300 men were lost during these several fights, killed and wounded. So when they got back to Dong Ha, they had to send them to the Philippines to refit. We went up there with a foxhole strength of something like about 800 men. When they got back out of the field, it was like 400 and something when they got back out. One time in 1845, no, in October 13th, 2 weeks or so after I was already gone, golf my company, got overrun by the North Vietnamese. They came right through us, killing as they went. A good friend of mine, Hamilton, who's in one of these pictures, was the machine gunner. He stayed with his machine gun the whole time with his, what was his name? Foster, a young black kid from Mississippi. And they stayed with the gun, and finally an RPG came out, a rocket-propelled grenade from the enemy. This is at 2 o'clock in the morning. You couldn't see anything. Wow. They were screaming and yelling, blowing bugles and running through. And they fired on him and blew them away. And it's amazing because Hamilton was always a fun-loving, goofing off kind of Marine, but man, he was tough when it came down to it. And he held his ground. He got a Silver Star posthumously. Yeah. But Lovelace got back to Dong Ha, and he went up to Sergeant Nelson and said, "Sarge, where is everybody?" Said, "They're all gone." All gone. Not all of them, but enough where for him to wonder where are all my buddies. You know, the whole platoons were just decimated. You know, and so it's crazy that way. But
so 60,000, 62,000 men died in Vietnam.
58,000 plus is the death toll.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I finally got down there 3 years ago with one of our reunions. We went down there and
down where?
Went down to see the wall with the association with our group, our 2-4
that
group.
wall is a grim monument.
Yeah, it was. I don't mind. I shed a few tears there. There's a whole. Me and my friend Bill Sellers, who was another radio man in my platoon. He found out where all these guys were. We went down there, and there's a whole group of names down at the bottom of one of these panels. They're all friends of ours. Oh, well, it was tough to see that. So, I don't know. That's about all I got for today.
Okay. If that was the idea behind the young woman that designed that memorial, that the American public paid so little attention to the Vietnam guys coming back.
No, that's a good question.
Individual name.
That's a good question. Every one of them.
Every single guy is there.
Yeah. And not only that,
identified.
Yeah,
Interesting.
That is interesting.
If that was her thought process.
Yeah, I'm glad it went that way. And it was a long time.
Well,
it
was
work,
high time to get some recognition.
And also for the fact that when you get down there and you look at the panels, you see your reflection in that polished granite. It's really something.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's right. That's right.
Decline and as you walk towards the center. Yeah, it's quite a setting.
Right, and they come together and then when you look back up that way, right up the path, as the wall is here, and then as you look at the path, right on line is the Washington Monument, right there, like a tree. And so it's where it's supposed to be. Should we have been in Vietnam? No, obviously not. Hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
All those people were in my what? People say they died for nothing. Well, but on the other hand, we tried to give that country a chance at democracy. At the same time, we got to remember, this was a time when the Red Scare was very, very viable back in the 60s.
The Cold War was still on.
And it was still on.
Still an economic war, and at least afterwards, the aftermath, the only saving grace would be is the economy of that area. The domino factor didn't fall through.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Those people are in South Vietnam anyway, not North Vietnam, but the South Vietnamese are doing a lot better now than when we were there.
Right.
That's true. George Bush, President George Bush, said something one night on a interview or something, I don't remember. He said, well, I want to say this to the Vietnam vets. He said, you guys, you were out there, and of course the women too. We had nurses, and those ladies lost their lives there too and doing what they did. But he said, all those people that went to Vietnam, and then he listed all the branches, of course. He said, I want them to know that they didn't die in vain, because we took a lot of manpower and materiel away from the communists, from the Russians, especially the Soviet Russia. And he said that it was due to that long period, 10 years of us fighting in Vietnam, that we drained the resources of the Soviet Union, eventually leading to their collapse. Well, that's a good thing to think about if that really were true.
Oh, but it is true, because that is how the Soviet Union collapsed. It was the
Yeah.
it was the munitions buildup with that, and then into the Reagan years, and the competitive economy.
I suppose you're right. Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anything else we should do?
No, sounds
You
very interesting.
You must be
Very nice.
exhausted by now.
We got to